Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tonight we have two proclamations. And these are exciting proclamations. They're in-house, and we love in-house proclamations because it's showing that we're doing very good work. The first proclamation is a proclamation on National Public Work Week, and it's a proclamation that May 19th through May 25th, 2019. Whereas this year, the American Public Work Association and communities nationwide are celebrating the 59th Annual National Public Works Week. And this year's theme is It Starts Here. And whereas many facets of modern civilization grow out of the efforts to put forth by public works professionals, infrastructure starts with public works, growth and innovation starts with public works, mobility starts with public works, security starts with public works, healthy communities start with public works. The bottom line is that our citizens' quality of life start with public works. And whereas the employees of McMinnville Water and Light and the employees of the city's engineering, public works, wastewater departments advance the quality of life for all of our citizens every day. And whereas it is in the public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children of McMinnville to understand the importance of public works and public works service in their lives. Now, therefore, I, Scott A. Hill, Mayor of the City of McMinnville, do hereby proclaim the week of May 19th to the 25th, 2019 as National Public Works Week in the City of McMinnville, and call upon all citizens, business leaders, civic organizations to acquaint themselves with the issues involved in providing and maintaining our public works infrastructure, and to recognize the contributions that our public works employees make every day our quality of life. In witness thereof, I herefore set my hand and cause the official seal of the City of McMinnville to be affixed this, the 14th day of May, 2019, signed Scotty Hill, Mayor, City of McMinnville. So, I'm going to do a couple of things. We are going to have our celebration of Public Works on May 22nd with a lunch, and this will be at McMinnville Water and Light, recognizing Mac Water and Light, the city and wastewater employees. So that's their recognition when we have an opportunity to come, and I'll just invite every counselor to make themselves available. Again, noon, May 22nd, at the Mac Water and Light warehouse building. Recognize John Dietz, who's the general manager of Water and Light, and Mike Bissett, who is our community development officer. And Mike, I'm not going to ask you to say anything, but if you take the award and share it with your staff, again, thank you. The second proclamation this evening, I will go ahead and read. Whereas the Congress and the President of the United States has designated May 15th as Peace Officer Memorial Day, and the week in which May 15th falls as National Police Week, and whereas the members of law enforcement agencies of McMinnville play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and the freedoms of McMinnville, and whereas it is important that all citizens know and understand the duties, responsibilities, hazards, and sacrifices of their law enforcement agency, and that members of our law enforcement agency recognize their duties to serve the people by safeguarding lives and property, by protecting them against violence and disorder, and by protecting the innocents against deception and the weak against oppression. And whereas the men and women of law enforcement agency of McMinnville unceasingly provide a vital public service, now therefore I, Scott A. Hill, Mayor of the City of McMinnville, do hereby proclaim May 12th through the 18th, 2019, to be National Police Week, and call upon all citizens of McMinnville and upon all patriotic, civic, educational organizations to observe the week of May 12th through 18th as Police Week, with appropriate ceremonies and observances in which all of our people may join in commemorating law enforcement officers, past, present, who have, by their faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities, have rendered a dedicated service to their community, and in doing so have established for themselves an invisible and enduring reputation for preserving the rights and the security of all citizens. I further call upon all citizens of McMinnville to observe the 15th of May 2019 as Peace Officer Memorial Day in honor of those law enforcement officers who, through their own courageous deeds, have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to their communities or have become disabled in the performance of duty. And let us recognize and pay respect to the survivors of all our fallen heroes. In witness thereof, I have hereto set my hand and caused the official seal of the city of McMinnville to be affixed this the 14th day of May 2019, signed Scott A. Hill, Mayor of McMinnville. We have a number of officers here, and we'd recognize, they're just a couple that represent the city, but we'd recognize them. We've got Tim, we've got a few here, but Chief, I'll take this and you can make the presentation to the group and tell them how much we appreciate all that they do. Thank you very much. Thank you. This evening, that takes us to comments from our public, and we invite any members of the public to provide comments. Your participation and input is appreciated. Anyone may speak on topics other than matters that are in litigation, quasi-judicial land use matters, or matters scheduled for public hearing at some future date. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. When your 3 minutes are up, I'll raise my hand. Please try to stop, finish your comments as quickly as possible. We will take up to 30 minutes, and tonight we'll be within those 30-minute guidelines. Speakers are not to yield their time to others in order to encourage an environment of openness, courtesy, and respect for differing points of view. Please refrain from behavior that is disruptive to the meeting, such as making loud noises, clapping, shouting, booing, or any other activity that disrupts the orderly conduct of this meeting. Abusive language will not be tolerated. So with that being said, Dean Kloss, Dean, if you'd come up first. Welcome. Good to see you, sir.
Good evening. My name is Dean Kloss. I live at 450 Northwest 7th Street in McMinnville. I'm the owner of the 6 acres of property adjacent to Destin Court. You've heard from me a few times before by letter. I've never been a chance to be here, and thank you for being on the City Council and the Mayor of McMinnville. So many of the things that I had well prepared for you here, you've covered already. Gosh darn, you get that location that will house the homeless people and take care of them and cease to have them be homeless. Couldn't be better put. Let me talk really, Joe, a couple of little specifics. A year ago, I had a building permit in McMinnville and the procedure to have it issued, and the homeless issue became so strong that I decided not to do that permit and took it to Dallas. And I was in Dallas probably 20 times, and I have yet to find a homeless person in the city of Dallas. Consequently, I made a purchase in that property, and I don't really care that you would care about my financial situation, but the reality it does produce a good tax revenue, and every city likes to have a tax revenue. I don't know who put the Welcome to McMinnville if you're homeless sign up, but I would like to take care of our own homeless people that are in the city, but I just have a feeling we're doing it way beyond the number of people that really come out of McMinnville and are homeless. I don't have any statistics to verify that, but 20 trips to Dallas looking for a piece of property to buy, and when I couldn't find a homeless, it gave me a good indication. I'll go to the specifics of finding that piece of property that will return Dustin's Court. And let me take a second. Dustin's Court was named by YCAP after my son, who died when he was 17 years ago. That was a long time back. But it's really been taken away from me and taken away from YCAP, the ability to pleasantly drive to work, or the ability for me to get a permit and get access off of Dustin's Court. Well, who could ever sell a piece of property with all of those people on the frontage street? I really support all your ideas. I'd like to make mention that if you're really serious about finding that piece of property and taking action, a farmer will always sell his way out of the crop that sets on the property. It's going to take you a little while to have the planning take place, and maybe that's the window of opportunity you're going to need to make it happen. But again, that problem has grown decidedly worse in a very short period of time. I think 2 years ago, I made that a rather nice structure and a very nice landscaping, 2 park benches, shade trees. Any more of the menacing people that seem to be on that property caused me, well, really not so much me, but my granddaughter is out there on that property. And hey, thank you very much, and I hope it all goes well.
Thank you, Dean. Next, Mark Davis. Mark?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'd like to address a couple of issues. There was a comment at one of the previous meetings about the library that rather upset me, and was also repeated in the paper. Unfortunately, it was quoted saying it was an unsafe place to take young children. I volunteer once a week at the library, and I really think that's not a correct assessment of what's going on at the library. I mean, I often shelve books in the juvenile area, and there's never been a problem, and I'm not aware of any problem. We have highly qualified staff there. They're always sitting at the desk. They're keeping an eye on that area. And, you know, if you have young children, it's a perfectly safe place to go. And I realize people have fears about people that are hanging around outside the library, or, you know, but, you know, the library is a public place. It's a public library is actually the name, and the public's allowed to go there. So I think, you know, we shouldn't be, you know, making decisions based on fear. The other point I'd like to make, and it's kind of, Councilor Geary was getting to it in his, when he was speaking during the work session, is that we have a larger issue, and I'm on the Affordable Housing Task Force, and I'm certainly, you know, in favor of doing all we can to deal with the issues we have on the ground. But I think we need to acknowledge here that we have a bigger problem than what's going on in McMinnville or even the state of Oregon. I mean, the people are being impacted by both national and international economic policy, and that we have, you know, a redistribution of wealth in this country. We have automation going on, and we're having a lot of you know, economic and social impacts on people in our community. And I mean, you just look at the average income in this community. I mean, we have other problems going on, and I certainly hope the council, you know, you're busy talking about money for bypass and other things with our federal representatives. I think we need to start talking to them about some of these federal policies that are having an impact on this community, that are driving this problem. Because we can find the nicest low barrier shelter location, and if we're just keeping and creating them by the, you know, the wages that are being paid, and the fact that, you know, people just can't afford to live in the housing that we're building, then we're not going to get anywhere. And I will address the revenue issues tomorrow at the Budget Committee meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Next, Howie Harkema. Howie? Good to see you, sir.
Good to see you all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Council. In the low barrier sheltering, if you don't find land that's usable out Riverside Drive and near the water waste disposal area, have we looked at Willamette ESD at the far end of town? To the left of that used to be a couple of modular homes that they used for an alternative school, and that is sitting vacant right now. And it seems to be on a bus route already. So I'm just suggesting that the possibility of that being a viable place for a low barrier camping and tent camping shelter, you might want to look into that. The second thing is a group of us that have called ourselves a Community Wellness Collective of McMinnville are having a once-a-month town hall at the public library in the Carnegie Room every third Wednesday. So we begin tomorrow night, and we know that you've got your budget meeting and you won't be able to make it, but I'm hopeful that downstream that you guys will be able to attend some of these meetings where it's all open-ended for everyone to come and voice their opinion. No shouting, no screaming, just like in here. So we just want to hear everybody's opinion and really come to a way to work together as a community. We know that this is highly charged, and we need to emphasize, let's de-escalate this just a little bit. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Howie. Next, we have Linda Peterson. Welcome, Linda.
Thank you for letting me speak. I'm not real educated on a lot of this. I know more a little bit about tax collection because I'm a 40-year retired employee of the county tax collector's office. I know I've been one of them that goes on Facebook and onto these groups, and I complain a lot, and I hear others complain, and I start getting angry. And I thought, instead of getting angry, it's eating me up. And I drive through these areas every once in a while. But I thought, I'm going to come to a meeting. I'm going to try to see what some of the facts are and how everything is actually working. The idea of getting some sort of area seems to be the whole problem when we're on these Facebook programs and we're talking with other people. We seem to find that the whole question is, okay, but where are you going to put us? You know, that seems to be the biggest question. Where are you going to put us? You're going to run us out. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. But where do we go? And so the idea of trying to find some property, and especially, and I'm not saying that I condone illegal activity or drugs or anything like that, but the lower amount of rules is going to be the big thing. I happen to have a daughter who used to be an addict, and I know how addiction completely rules a life. Nothing else is important. And so when you tell someone, we'll help you get a foot up, sometimes just the fact of having that shelter and knowing that somebody is caring about that person, maybe you have to tell them, go ahead and destroy yourself, but do it within your own four walls. But that may be all they need to feel like they're part of some sort of community, that they would be able to eventually think, I might just have the energy to go through this and try to make something of my life. And I think the problem is the small percentage of these people are people that are like me, who, you know, that one paycheck away from homelessness. I think that's a pretty small percentage. I think most of these people that are out there are either have some mental handicaps, physical handicaps, or drug-related. Personally, drug-related is right up there with physical and mental. They made that choice, yes, that was bad, but they stepped into that life, and there's no getting out. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Frankie Sandoval. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm Frankie Sandoval. I've been living in McMinnville for 25 years, owned a home, and been in business for 30 years. And I see all the diligent work everybody's putting in. It's quite a challenging issue for everybody. Everybody so far has been talking about a housing issue and compassion. And I'm here to say that the Oregonian did a survey and interviewed 1,000 homeless, and 90% of them chose to live on the street and not be affiliated with a shelter. A shelter, of course, expects you not to use drugs and to obey the rules, and that's the reason they don't use these shelters. But we cannot tax our way out of this problem. If we think housing is a problem, the real true source are drugs. So what can we do about that? Well, arrest, yes, arrest. Treatment, number 2, and training after that. So in my point of view as a businessman, the better goal would be treating people who choose to be homeless. I have compassion, but I also draw lines, and I've done my part my whole life to be a good citizen. So it's tough being on both sides of the fence as a city leader and trying to weigh both sides of the same coin. But we have to draw a line. There has to be a line in the sand, and if we don't do that, we're going to get overrun. And you think housing's the problem? Is drugs, and your children are next. They're looking for their next customers, and they'll find them in our homes. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it Larry Cumming?
Larry Cummings.
Thank you, Cummings. Welcome, Larry.
All right, thank you. I don't know if it sounds like it's the right forum to come to. I came here because of the homeless situation, and I didn't realize so many other people, obviously it's a problem. I own the premises building and premises, and we've gone through, a major remodel, which has cost a lot. And between my neighbors and myself, I've seen an impact in our business and the people that want to come and walk down the sidewalk. We've had customers that come in and feel intimidated by it and mention it. The 3 parking lots, the spots that are being used right now on that 4th Street are unusable. If you bring your car there, you can't even open the door. If I did that on the sidewalk right now and I put a sign that said sale going on and nobody could get out on the passenger side, I'd be ticketed. And so my wife used to park over there in the library area. She doesn't want to walk on that sidewalk. She's not the only one. I've talked to the people at the community bank. They had a lady that would walk her dog during her break all the time, and one of those guys that came up and, I'm just using an example that's real, and said, hey, watch your dog all the time. What's its name? It looks like a nice dog. Do you need someone to walk with you? And so after she told the name, then she came back. She doesn't walk her dog anymore. She doesn't want to go by him. I've gone there and I've actually taken pictures alongside Roscoe's, which has the Happy Hut. He's completely beside himself of what to do with this. There's feces that has been there. I watch those people when I come to work in the morning, 7 o'clock, 7:30, they'll be coming and they have liquor bottles and they're throwing them in the garbage can. They'll stand on the side. We've had to call the police on them. The other day, just yesterday, they came. They took one of the tents because they were too far and they drew like chalk lines. And I feel for the police. I understand there's a problem, but I'm afraid that if we don't control this, when I first tried to get a hold of someone, I didn't get a call back, but 3 calls in, and there was 1 person there. Now there's 9, and there's more. If it continues to grow, I think what we're trying to do is we're a tourist city as well as wanting people to come and use the community. We're going to get the air show. I think this is all great. You can have the Pinot Noir Festival. But people don't always express their opinion. They come and they say, I'm not coming back. And that's how I am. I generally, if I go someplace and if I don't feel comfortable, I don't go to Portland as much as I used to. We used to go there. I don't like it. I don't like having to deal with the problems up there. And I'm afraid that's what we're doing in our community. I do understand there's a problem, but we have to address this one that's on downtown right now because it's out of control and it needs to be addressed.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you.
Alan Kane. Welcome, Alan.
Hi, thank you. So, my concern is primarily about the children. I mean, there's a lot of talk about it's inconvenient, it sucks, it's financially difficult for the community. But in the meantime, when the council moves forward to either take this new ordinance into consideration, you're also taking into consideration whether you're going to declare it an emergency based on sanitary conditions that are, public health crisis. So in the same breath where we're saying it's a public health crisis and we're in process of getting that passed through to make it official, there's children that are down there. So we've seen these trailers come in and not move. I can tell you, I've been in a situation where I've been stuck and having to live in a camp trailer and tags expired. It cost $100 to have the truck come out and pump that here in McMinnville. $100 to have it done. How many times have you guys seen a pump truck on Marsh Lane or Dustin Court? Right? Now you cannot house children where their toilets are all backed up to the point where I know that it gets in a trailer if you don't have it pumped. That is neglect. That is a health crisis to those kids that are involved in the situation currently. They will be in that situation until somebody does something to fix it. Their parents don't admit that there's a problem with it. So, we're in limbo here until all this gets passed. So are those kids. They're in that environment. We don't know them personally. Our law enforcement can't enter that trailer unless there's suspicion of a crime. I don't know these people. I can't file a report based on a name, all those kind of things that I need for that. But everybody in here knows just as well as I do, those crappers are full. Those kids are not getting the sanitary access that they need, and there is a legitimate risk to that. And as far as the library is concerned, yes, these people do have, they're citizens, they have a right to the public space just as we do. But with active addiction, you see a lot of infections and stuff, MRSA, staph. So when you see all the quote unquote meth sores on their face, that's an infection. And they hurt. And understandably, they mess with them. And they have a right to that public space, and they're touching the doors, and they're grabbing the books. And how can our librarians be even expected to sanitize that large of an environment to protect our children? How long does MRSA or staph stay active and live on those surfaces? If you go to the park, the doors lock, on a photo sensor or time lock. So they lock at a certain hour. So if you go directly behind this park right here, there is like an arched concrete thing. And if you look over the edge of it, it is just toilet paper mounds. It smells like feces. So, I mean, how does that get dealt with? I know I've worked construction, and when you have that kind of stuff in there, you have to dig it out.
Thank you, Alan. Jacob Miller. Jacob?
Good evening, Council. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I'd like to start by saying thank you for everybody that's put forth a real active effort towards a viable solution. That being said, I'd also like to shame those that are looking in a tyrannical direction and in violations of our constitutions. I noticed these things weren't read out loud, but I'll just highlight on one. third page of the staff packet. Additionally, I believe the city needs to be aware that there is a possibility of forcefully removing campers from their tents and RVs in order to make arrests. Families with children who do not comply may require we call other family members and child welfare workers to take custody of the children until the parents are released from jail. Lastly, we need to be aware that those campers who do not comply and we tow their RVs or take their campsites, we are likely to be taking everything the campers own. There is a very real possibility the RV campers will not be able to afford the tow charges to get them out. And I'm not going to get into all this stuff because you guys are all aware, but I did want to get some of it on the record. It really does seem that this, well, it's converting a right, converting the exercising of a right into a crime is, well, against the law. I mean, it really is. It's unconstitutional. And going along that constitutional note, I really like to go, I really don't think that enacting more unenforceable ordinances or more well, I'll just say with the unenforceable ordinances or ordinances that are 3 years old and have not actually withstood the constitutional test of somebody actually testing it, I really don't think that that would stand. We're looking at different programs without actually applying ourselves into the program that we've already talked about. I do agree that some people have actually put forth effort, but the sites aren't available. And talking to the site managers, there isn't any sites. Does your manipulation, my question to you, which is unanswered, but I'll just leave it at that. Does your manipulation and attempted subversion of the Constitution equal a valid cause of action? Does it equal corpus delicti? Does it equal a body of a crime? Does it equal standing? Does it equal jurisdiction? I really don't think it does. I say no. Nor does redefining a word in McMinnville make the redefined word in action a crime. You might know about lex peri materia. It's really not, it doesn't work that way. Conspiracy against rights and deprivation of rights under color of law, maybe. If anything, your victims would have a valid cause of action against you, and possibly all of you and anybody who is a co-conspirator in the action. We're not just talking about just a McMinnville type of thing, or just hypothetically speaking, because it's just a hypothetical thing. You know, it's not just McMinnville. It can also come down to personal capacities, because we're moving forward with this much information has been brought forth and some of it turned down instead of looked at. Evidence is turned down instead of being looked at, even though that they were offered up. It amounts to, at least in my opinion, knowingly, willingly, and intentionally participating in these actions. And so anybody that's doing it, time's up. All right.
Thank you, Jacob.
Yep.
Joya Goodrum. Welcome, Joya.
Good evening, thank you. Good evening, Mayor, councilors, and guests. At the April 9th meeting, we presented to you our concerns regarding the application of city codes. Over a month has passed while 4th Street, Dustin Court, and Marsh Lane continue to be overrun with trash and waste. Business leaders in McMinnville are frustrated and feel as though their contributions are taken for granted, because when they present the impacts the situation is having on their livelihood, it falls on deaf ears. We urge you to take the necessary steps to resolve the crisis in our community. We are waiting for your leadership. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Joya. And John Dan. Welcome, John.
Hey, good evening, guys. So somebody asked who rolled out the welcome mat to McMinnville. So 4 years ago, a homeless YouTuber named Travis Hines, you could just Google homeless in McMinnville, you'll find it. He put up a video about how awesome McMinnville is for homeless people. He got he travels up and down the West Coast and does reviews on towns, right? Well, McMinnville provides free meals every single day, multiple meals most days. The food bank gives food to everybody. They get a free laundry card, free bus passes, free showers. It's a great place to be homeless. I mean, his YouTube title is McMinnville is a safe haven for homeless white people. Anyway, I know this problem isn't all your fault and you guys can't solve it all by yourselves, but as long as you provide free meals, free transportation, free laundry to homeless people who don't want help, don't want to get off drugs, but want to live on the street and do drugs, they're going to continue to do this. And you guys are insane if you think that making a bigger area where people are more welcome to live in their trailers is going to solve this, because it's going to get a lot worse if you roll out the welcome mat even more than it's been rolled out already. So I think you guys need to work with the local churches and charities and maybe come up with something like Love Inc. that Newburgh has, where they try to funnel all the charitable contributions through one clearinghouse, so that people who take advantage of the system and keep going from one group to another and wear out their welcome, they kind of puts an end to that, because they can only burn them once in that city. Here, people just go around, they go to different groups, different places. I mean, one of my sisters and her husband helped a homeless couple out and got totally burned, and it was a long story, but they tried to help these people. They got them a place to live, and it was a disaster. And then that couple moved on. We see them around town. They just moved on to the next good-hearted person who's trying to help them, and they never had any intention of getting off drugs. They never had any intention of getting a job. They were happy with the life they were living, and they're going to continue to do that until everything dries up. So I know it doesn't sound compassionate, but I mean, that's the truth. We're going to get a lot more homeless.
Thank you, John. Okay, we're going to now move to item 6, and that's a presentation from the Housing Rehabilitation Program of McMinnville, the Housing Authority of Yamhill County, and I'll call on Darcy to come up, who will make a presentation to us tonight. Darcy, welcome. It's good to see you.
Good evening, Mayor Hill and Council. I'm here to talk briefly about a community development block grant funding opportunity that's coming up. This grant would allow us to provide funds to provide critical repairs to people living in manufactured homes in parks. These people are typically not eligible for your traditional forms of loans or other assistance to make these repairs. And they're often extremely low, very low. Your seniors, disabled, families with children. And if we can't make these repairs to their home, they potentially could be displaced. Actually, right now, we have 126 applications from such homeowners on our waiting list in the city of McMinnville. And this funding opportunity would allow us to potentially get $500,000 brought into the community to address this need. Assistance would be provided to these households in the forms of grants, not to exceed $10,000. And they're only to address immediate health and safety items or accessibility issues. The goal is to address all critical health and safety concerns so that they can safely remain in their homes. In 2014, we worked with the city of McMinnville on the similar project. That one was a $400,000 grant, where this one is potentially $500,000. And we were able to assist 52 households. And we recently completed one for the city of Newburgh, same amount, 400,000, and we were able to assist 38 households. The number was a little bit smaller there in part because of the rising costs of construction, and their needs were different. The repairs for both projects included things like replacing roofs, heating systems, plumbing fixtures, replacing windows, a lot of dry rot repairs, replacing flooring, mildew remediation, and a lot of accessory modifications like ramps and walk-in showers. If we are awarded the $500,000, we anticipate this project would be able to help about $65,000. So what I'm hoping for tonight is to receive your support and approval to come forward at the June 11th council meeting with a resolution to move forward with a grant and to appoint a certifying officer for that project, and also to have the required initial public hearing. So that's ultimately what I'm seeking tonight is your interest and support in coming forward with that. And of course, if you have any questions.
Okay. Again, this is a presentation for our support. We've done that in times past. Heather has been our certifying officer in times past, correct, Heather?
The planning department staff has been that.
okay.
I wasn't here the first time around, but that's the recommendation for this. And we're looking to see if we could schedule a public hearing for this consideration on June 11th to be able to submit the
Okay.
application.
I recommend that we provide the direction to notice and host the public hearing to consider the grant application on June 11th.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Well, discussion. Let's see. I get ahead of myself. Okay, then no discussion. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. So we'll move forward and have that public hearing in June, and I think we'll move forward with everything that you've asked for. Darcy?
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Thank you.
Okay, this evening, we have, under advice and information items, we'll have the reports from our counselors and department heads. So I think I'll start with Zach. One of these days, I'm going to start in the middle. So Wendy or Kelly, get ready one of these days. But Zach, we'll start with you to do your reports.
Nothing monumental. Landscape committee is tomorrow. Historic landmarks took, I'm lost in my months. This month is May, so it means last month was April. They had no meeting in April, so we'll be meeting in May, as well as McMinnville Community Media will be meeting this coming Monday. So I'm sort of in between meetings at this point.
Thank you. Okay, just a second. Well, we'll go ahead.
Hey, Zach, could you touch on KOB since I wasn't there?
Great call. Adam and I are serving on the KOB TAC, the Kids on the Block Task Force. We're 3 meetings through a 5-meeting work plan that we'll be bringing something back to the council. Touched on a little bit last time. We've kind of got a mission vision, did our visioning board exercise and came up with some really great stuff. I think we're gonna kind of have the next hard discussion be more about is the city the best person to offer those services? Just have that as a good hard discussion to see, we know what program we currently offer, that we have for 30 years. We know what the group wants to make the program, and I think the next discussion will be to come up with, answer the question, are we the best ones to be offering that service? So.
Again, thank you, Zach.
Can I tack on just a little bit as it's relevant? Following the presentation that we had from Oregon Ask about the KOB program, I don't know if you all recall this, but when we learned about low attendance, one of the main reasons that was given was staffing, and part of the reason for that difficulty in staffing was due to the schedule change at Linfield, and so lack of available work study. So I met with both the president and senior faculty there, both of which were unaware that the chosen schedule change the faculty had voted on had this reverberation out into the community. So I wanted to let you know that I had those conversations. Then I also met with some McMinnville School District administrators, and so as you move forward, some of the feedback that was given was, and I think these are some things that you're already discussing, but that the online application is very limiting, especially for some populations, and that with the change to the first come, first serve, that we're not necessarily serving the intended population, so that there's a lot of kids in KOB whose families could afford to have some sort of other child care, and some households where there is no other child care option available are getting missed, and that schools have a history of being able to kind of reserve a number of spots based on their populations, and that's a tool they would really like to have back.
For sure, we've identified some of what you touched on there. For a long time, the KOB's operated in somewhat of a silo in respect to the key partners that create a sustainable model for it, Linfield, the school district. So the presence of, at least Adam and I know we've talked about it a little bit, but also some of the other committee members are hoping to take what we find and help bring those partners to the table. The school district, which was around when we formed the group, get them back to the table. I know the mayor has talked about wanting to kind of have a school board, city council discussion on KOB going forward when our committee gives them more marching orders, as well as talking to Linfield. We've got some Linfield faculty on our advisory committee, as well as the school district's curriculum director. So I think staffing has been the key change that has kind of shied away from expanding the program to those areas that you've identified. So solving the staffing problem by communicating, shocking, should help.
Thank you, Zach. And again, I think some really good motions happening there. I've been involved with the KOB for a number of years, and I think we're making great headway and under Susan's direction. So, Remy, report?
So on April 24th, the Affordable Housing Task Force met. We had a video conference with the City of Bend housing staff to explore some of the things that they've done effectively to address affordable housing in their area, hoping we can take some lessons from them. We continued our discussion of some House and Senate bills as they relate to affordable housing in the city, which I won't dig into. I'll let Sal do that. We made a motion supporting the McMinnville School District grant. They have a program grant application related to McKinney-Vento, and so we got behind that and signed on in support of it. And we had a floating zone update, so that relates back to what Heather was talking about during the work session. This is initiative. This is a program that's in development that would allow for the emergency construction of some tiny homes to serve as transitional housing. And so we have a subgroup that has been working on that and is making a lot of progress. In fact, it's moving forward. And then we won't meet again for about 2 weeks, but there are a couple of other interim things that are happening. One is that tomorrow there's a city center housing strategy meeting, and this is a meeting to identify city and community desires and goals for housing in the city center, to determine how the city can incentivize housing in the city center where residential uses are allowed, and also to identify pilot projects. And so that's a focus group that's meeting, not an open meeting. And then we also have another subgroup that was meeting, working on creating a position of a regional homeless coordinator. And so we have two things coming out of that. One, we have a more or less a draft of a job description of what that would look like. And then we have a grant application that is hurriedly being worked on to fund that position. And it's our city planning department and the housing authority, Yamhill County, that have been teaming up on that. And we did have a Newburgh city councilor working on that as well, but she went into labor, so that removed her work on it temporarily. But it is a collaboration between multiple cities and the county. And there's one more thing that I'm forgetting. Oh, and then towards the end of the month, because our Housing for Homeless subcommittee has gone through a number of different iterations, and we've had some of the key members of that depart, and just a lot of change that's happened, and also in light of the fact that things have been changing at the McMinnville city level in terms of what we're doing here about homelessness. We're going to be kind of the leadership team of that group is going to be meeting to try to, again, kind of add a little bit more structure back to it and see what direction we want to go in light of whatever changes the city makes. And I think anything else would be better coming from, the rest would be you, Kelly, and Sal.
Okay.
Is that 3 minutes?
Yep. A long 3 minutes, but 3 minutes. Wendy?
So we had a NUROC meeting on the 1st of May, and we covered 3 things. One of the things is the city center housing strategy. We have the consultant that gave their initial proposal. We have the first meeting, the advisory meetings that are going to be coming up on that. So there's some exciting things happening there. Remy already talked about that a little bit. We also talked about the housing, the parking structure. We're looking at evaluating the parking structure. We had quite a bit of conversation about whether or not we should add in to determine if we could do some type of housing on top of the parking structure, like what, for a 3rd story, what could be supported, including not just a concrete 3rd story, but maybe another alternative type of 3rd story that might serve a different purpose than just more parking, if 3rd story for concrete. And I think we did approve the amount to look at that as well, just to give us options for the future. And then we talked a little bit more about what the next steps were on the downtown project that's going on. But there hasn't been another meeting. We're waiting for the consultants to come back to us on that one. So those were the 3 primary things. Did I miss anything, Heather? No, I think I got everything. And Scott can fill in if I didn't get everything.
Thank you, Wendy. Let's go down to Adam.
YCOM didn't meet last week, so we'll meet in June. Most likely to adopt our budget, looking at 3% increase. The Airport Commission met last week, but I was out of state, down at the Chino Hills Airport. And their main presentation was from Bill with the Oregon International Air Show. I'm sure Jeff could touch on that a little bit, but it sounds like they still need to check a couple boxes before that's a for sure. And Zach touched on KOB, so Sal, you're up.
Alrighty. So just really quickly, Council of Governments, the main work on the Council of Governments right now is promoting the idea of Marion Polk Yamhill continuum of care. We'll be hearing that at a future meeting in our council, so I won't dwell on that. The main thing I wanted to mention is that House Bill 2997, which is our inclusionary zoning pilot project for the city of McMinnville that would allow us to apply inclusionary zoning rules to housing products that we actually build in McMinnville, is scheduled for a work session on Tuesday of next week, I believe, or Monday. We have bipartisan support for the bill. I have heard from Representative Noble today, and I met with 3 members of the Senate Republican caucus to confirm that we had solid bipartisan support. All 3 of those senators are supporting, so we're good to go for Monday or Tuesday on that. That's the main update. I'm hoping that Senate Bill 595, which is the gives us the authority to reallocate funding from our transient lodging tax, still is going to survive the sausage making process. I'm somewhat confident of it, but we're 1 for 2 so far. So,
thank you, Sal. Kelly.
Well, I'm going to report tonight as the budget chairperson, and what I want to do tonight is to once again put before the council a motion. And that motion is in regard to sewer franchise fee. The franchise fee would provide stimulus money to assist with supportive projects and services for people without homes. In addition, we have near-term symptoms related to negative conduct that need to be mitigated. Now, as part and parcel of this motion, there is a secondary motion that I would like to put before you. And that motion is that while the city has been enjoying a wide variety of initiatives, none of those efforts have been informed by available revenue streams. And what we would like to do is look at a number of different revenue streams, be they marijuana taxes or the 595 Senate bill, and charge the staff of the city to contemplate, since they've never had any revenue to work with and a revenue stream, to come forth to us in June. There are city staff members and volunteer committees able and willing to identify options and recommendations that could leverage funds and make significant impact on the situation in McMinnville. At the pleasure of the council, some alternatives could be presented for consideration, at least in concept form, when the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget is brought to the council to adopt in June. So what I would like to do is put that motion before you tonight. I'd appreciate a second on at least the first motion so that we might discuss this and give them tentative.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved by Kelly and seconded by Sal. Any discussion among the group? And this is to bring to us the ability to have a wastewater franchise fee coming to us at our next meeting, correct?
No, I think it would probably be in June.
We might be able to get it to you next week.
It might come to us at the.
Okay, as soon as staff's able to bring it to the table.
As soon as staff is able to bring it. And then further down the road in June, we would ask staff as part of the second motion to sit down and come up conceptually with what they think those funds would best be spent for.
Okay.
Keeping in mind that some of the emergency needs we do have at this time.
Okay. Adam, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I would just, if that's going to be brought before us, if there could be some information in there about the average user fee for like a residential consumer, a commercial consumer, and then an industrial consumer. When I looked in the packet as far as the high users, they were kind of our more affordable housing apartment complexes. And so it would be my concern that leveraging that franchise fee is just going to make rents go up, which makes them less affordable.
Well, right now, as far as the individual users are concerned, we're looking at an increase of maybe $3.50 overall. Obviously, the industrial users and the business users would be somewhat higher. But there's a relatively low number of them that would have, there's only one I can think of that wouldn't be impacted significantly.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion in front of us. Any other
I just have a clarifying question that may be out of order, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Are we bringing also forward the Vancouver ordinance at the next council meeting?
Yes. We've given instructions to staff on that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion in front of us. It's been brought to us and seconded. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, so staff has that to bring to us. And why don't you go ahead with the second piece if you want to clarify that a little more.
Let me bring forth the second motion. Okay, while the city has been exploring a wide variety of initiatives, none of those efforts have been informed by an available revenue stream to work with for projects and services being contemplated. There are city staff members and volunteer committees able and willing to identify options and recommendations that could leverage funds and make a significant impact on the situation in McMinnville. At the pleasure of the council, some alternatives could be presented for consideration, at least in concept form, when the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget is brought to the council for adoption in June. And as a part of this motion, I want you to understand that we'd be looking at all revenue sources that would be available. That would include the wastewater franchise fee, but it would also include marijuana taxes, the Senate Bill 595, and anything else that we would deem appropriate to look at that time.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
So it's been moved by Kelly and seconded by Wendy. Any discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, and this passes unanimously. So staff has a direction and to get back to us as quickly as we can do that. This evening, we have a public hearing on the Emergency Communication Fund budget, agenda item 9C. And so, Marcia, I will have you, and I'll go ahead and open up that public hearing. And so go ahead and give us the information you need to, if you would.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to start with a little background on this public hearing. There's actually 3 resolutions on the agenda for tonight. The first resolution, 2019-31, awards a contract for an upgrade to the city's public safety radio system, and Chief Scales will report on that resolution later. Second resolution, 2019-32, authorizes execution and delivery of lease purchase agreements. Lease purchase agreements are essentially financing agreements or installment loans. And so this resolution 2019-32 authorizes the city to enter into a financing agreement for the radio system upgrade. And it also authorizes the city to enter into a financing agreement for public safety vehicles. The third resolution, 2019-33, adopts a supplemental budget in the Emergency Communications Fund. So to take advantage of a discount on the radio system equipment, which again, Chief Scales will discuss in more depth later, the city must make a $75,000 down payment to Motorola by June 1st. There is currently not sufficient appropriations in the Emergency Communications Fund to make that down payment. So the supplemental budget is necessary, and Resolution 2019-33 adopts that supplemental budget, transfers $75,000 from contingency in the Emergency Communications Fund to a capital outlay appropriation category. Now, local budget law imposes another requirement in this particular situation. Local budget law requires that the governing body hold a budget hearing prior to adopting the supplemental budget when the supplemental budget includes an appropriation category that doesn't currently exist in the adopted budget. So what that means is in the Emergency Communications Fund, we do not currently have a capital outlay appropriations category because typically we're not buying capital equipment out of that fund. So because we don't currently have that appropriation category, local budget law is requiring us to hold the public hearing before the council can adopt the supplemental budget. I would be happy to answer any questions about that.
And this public hearing gets us ready for those three resolutions that we'll be taking on in just a little while. And there was a good write-up on this, so. Any discussions or questions from council? Hearing none, is there any public testimony? I'll call for public testimony. Hearing none then, I guess we'll go ahead and close our public hearing on these emergency communication funds. Okay, that takes us to now item number 8, our consent agenda this evening. We have a number of items. We have for consideration an OLCC liquor license request for limited on-premise and off-premise licenses for McMinnville Event Center, LLC, DBA Mecca, located at 636 Northeast Baker Street. Consideration of an OLCC liquor license request for limited on-premise and off-premises licenses for Walnut City Pizza Company, DBA Pizza Copa, located at 318 Northeast 3rd Street. A consideration of an OLCC liquor license request from Winery 1, first location at 431 Wine LLC, located at 2803 Northeast Orchard Avenue, and a consideration of an OLCC liquor license request for a full on-premise, nonprofit private club license for the McMinnville Elks Club, number 1283, Benevolent Protective Order of Elks, located at 2215 Northeast McDonald Lane. And lastly, consider the minutes of the March 12th, 2019 City Council work session and regular meeting. I'll ask if any councilor would like to have any item off our consent agenda pulled, put on the regular agenda. Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Remy and seconded by Kelly. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed indicate by saying nay. The consent agenda this evening passes unanimously 6-0. We have a number of resolutions this evening, and so the first is to consider Resolution 2019-31, a resolution awarding the sole source contract for equipment upgrade of the City of McMinnville's public safety radio system. And so we'll call on Chief Scales to present. Chief?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and members of the council. I refer you to the staff report that's in your packet, along with the resolution. I'd first like to thank Marcia and her staff, and David, for the work on this. This is sort of a short window with which we had an opportunity to get this upgrade, so I do want to acknowledge their work. They did a tremendous amount of work in a very short period of time in a complex transaction. The report in brief is essentially this. It's an action to consider the resolution to award the contract in the amount of $301,649 to Motorola Solutions and Day Wireless for an upgrade to the public safety simulcast radio communication system. The upgrade of the infrastructure and radio subscriber units is necessary at this time, as the current equipment utilized by the police department will no longer be maintained or supported by Motorola or Day Wireless. As you recall, in 2011, 2012, the city of McMinnville began the design, purchase, and installation of the upgraded three-site Motorola public safety radio system. This was, at the time, a 3-channel analog UHF simulcast system that was purchased and installed, knowing it had the ability at that time to be upgraded to a digital P25 interoperable simulcast system. That's a system that allows us to talk within jurisdictions that we might not normally have the ability to. The event of this move to digital would allow for cleaner and clearer transmissions, and as I said, the ability for us to also communicate with other P25 compliant systems. At the time we went live in 2012, the police department purchased Motorola portables and some mobiles, but at the time of those purchases, the equipment that we did procure had been out on the market for several years. In the latter part of 2018, we received information that our current selection of mobiles and portables, minus the ones that we had already purchased, knowing that they needed to be upgraded, would no longer be maintained, supported by Motorola. They were discontinuing the parts. In essence, we need to find a path to update our subscriber units. Over the course of the last few months, Day Wireless Systems and Motorola Solutions have done extensive work to provide information for consideration how to move forward with the upgrade of our current system. That upgrade would move our system to an infrastructure of digital P25, a crucial part of, like I again mentioned, in interoperability during the time of a disaster, either man-made or natural. In addition, they have also been able to provide updated subscriber units, again, Motorola portables and mobiles for everyday deployment. I should say that this has been vetted through legal, and the proposed contract meets the sole source contracting requirements, because a large portion of the equipment that's proposed to be purchased is software upgrades to the existing Motorola system. And in addition, Day Wireless is the only certified installation partner for Motorola public safety equipment in the area. That you'll see that documentation in your packet. Motorola has been able to provide a deep price break to the cost of the upgrade, both to the infrastructure, that'd be the supporting the guts of the system, along with our upgraded subscriber units, mobiles and portables, by piggybacking on top of a competitive bid that the Washington County Consolidated Communications Agency has already agreed to. This price reduction is upwards of 48% of the total cost of the subscriber units and upgrades. So in essence, with this bid and the ability to piggyback, have saved roughly $121,000. If the city council, obviously, you will need to determine whether this is one source. I'll let you decide that. The resolution includes the findings, like I'd mentioned, And as fiscally as this impacts, you had, Marcia has already mentioned that the funds are going to be, of this project are included in the 1819 Emergency Communications Fund for initial down payment of $75,000, with the remaining balance to be paid over the next 7 years through a lease purchase agreement. Lease purchase payments will be covered through a combination of system access fees and franchise fees the city takes in on an annual basis. And with that being said, staff recommends that you move forward with the resolution and award the contract to Motorola Solutions and Data Wireless in the amount of $301,649. I'll take your question.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions or for the chief? Go ahead, Adam.
It's over a 7-year contract. What's the life expectancy of this new technology?
Yeah, we researched that. We spoke to our representative from Data Wireless, Cameron, and the system, the current stuff that we would purchase with this is not even, it's not even on the radar to be replaced. It is that new. So this stuff, we will exceed the lease purchase timeframe. I would anticipate this equipment lasting well into a decade.
Okay. What happens with our current radio system? Or is it moved to a different part of the city, or for like Public Works to use or something like that?
Well, Public Works is already on this system. They're on the analog part. Law enforcement will move to the digital platform. So one channel will be moved over to that digital platform.
Gotcha. And then does that make it a trunk system to where people can't easily hear radio traffic from law enforcement?
Part of this upgrade also essentially encrypts, is that what you're talking about? Yeah. Encryption? Encrypts the law enforcement channel. Obviously, there's many jurisdictions in our area or state that have gone encryption, which basically means that our signal cannot be essentially monitored by the public or the people that we're searching for. So we will be encrypted. We'll be able to talk with our dispatch center. But outside of that, unless we're on the other analog channels within the system, our law enforcement communications are encrypted.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions?
I don't have a advanced knowledge of this communication base, but your comment about how new it was, do you think that this puts us on the bleeding edge of technology and we're going to be fighting it?
No, when I said, I guess I should have phrased that better. New as in this has not been on the market. As far as like our old stuff that we purchased in 2012, that had been on the market for a number of years and was almost, well, as we're seeing now, no longer going to be serviced. We are, according to our rep, not even remotely in that area, being notified that there will no longer service or anything with the equipment that we will purchase. Again, we're looking in advance of 10 years worth of utilization. It's not bleeding edge technology. It's just new equipment that Motorola has purchased, or excuse me, offered out and is available to us to purchase. I'd say that the stuff that we got in 2012 is probably on the market for 4 or 5 years already at the time. That's not this case in this situation.
What's the sort of ongoing support they're going to offer?
So the installation, the infrastructure that they update, as terms under the contract is, it's covered for a year of warranty.
Okay.
Could I ask a quick question following up from Zach? I mean, we're not going to be beta testing this for them, are we?
Not at all. Okay. Not at all.
All right.
My question to that captain also happened, are we going to be beta? No, this is stuff that's been out there.
Okay.
Anyone else? Okay, hearing none, then I will ask for a motion to approve resolution 2019-31.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
So Zach has moved and Wendy seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please signify by saying nay. Resolution number 2019-31 passes unanimously 6-0. That takes us to our second resolution for consideration this evening, Resolution 2019-32, a resolution of the City of McMinnville, Oregon, authorizing the execution and delivery of one or more lease purchases, loan, or similar agreement. Marcia, if you'd walk us through that.
Thank you. This resolution authorizes the city to enter into financing agreements to pay for the radio system upgrade that Chief Scales just described, and also to acquire 3 public safety vehicles. So if the council adopts Resolution 2019-32, authorizing us to enter into these financing agreements, staff will move forward with the following financing agreements. So in regards to the radio system equipment, it was determined that Government Capital Corporation was the best option for financing the equipment, as they offered repayment over 7 years. The principal amount of the lease in my staff report is $233,000. However, with the recent report with, I don't know, is this your negotiating skills, Matt? I believe the amount now is, instead of $233,000, the principal amount will be $227,000. The interest rate is 4.15%, and so the total interest paid over the life of the agreement would be about $34,000. And there is appropriation included in the 2019-20 proposed budget, which will be in front of you tomorrow night, that includes the debt service payment for this financing agreement. So that's the first financing agreement. The second agreement relating to the police vehicles, during the 2018-19 budget process, the current fiscal year, the decision was made to enter into lease purchase agreements to acquire 3 police vehicles. And if you might recall, we did lease cars in 2017-18. The principal amount of the lease agreement that is with Municipal Asset Management is $153,497. We've got annual payments of $34,634 over 5 years. The interest rate on the agreement is 3.88%, and so the total interest paid on during the life of the agreement would be about $12,885. And also for this financing agreement, there is an appropriation for the first payment that is included in the 2019-20 budget that will come before you tomorrow evening.
Okay, any questions of Marcia on this resolution? Okay, hearing no discussion, I'll ask for a motion to approve resolution number 2019-32.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Been moved by Adam and seconded by Wendy. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed, signify by saying nay. Resolution 2019-32 passes unanimously 6-0. That takes us to resolution number 2019-33, a resolution adopting a supplemental budget for fiscal year 2018-19 and making supplemental appropriations in the Emergency Communication Fund. Marcia, we'll turn that over to you also.
Thank you. As I previously explained prior to the public hearing, this is the resolution that actually makes the budgetary amendment. And so the supplemental budget transfers the $75,000 from contingency in the Emergency Communications Fund to a capital outlay appropriation that will allow us to cut the check basically for the down payment of $75,000 that we will be required to make to Motorola before June 1st. And as required by local budget law, the budget hearing was held earlier this evening.
Okay. Any questions for Marcia on this resolution? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve resolution 2019-33.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
It was moved by Sal and seconded by Zach. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please indicate by saying nay. Resolution 2019-33 passes unanimously 6-0. This takes us to our last resolution this evening, resolution 2019-34. 2019-34, a resolution supporting the establishment of the continuum of care for the Mid-Willamette region. We'll call on Jeff to update us on that. Jeff?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. We've provided substantial background information on this topic to you, including a slideshow a couple of months ago related to the continuum of care. Last month, Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments and Sean O'Day, including Sean O'Day, Janet Carlson, former Marion County Commissioner, made a presentation during a work session to the Yamhill Board of County Commissioners. Myself, the mayor, and council president were present. The action before you tonight is in support of the Yamhill County joining Marion and Polk counties in a regional continuum of care. Our expectation is that over time, additional federal funds would come to the housing authorities for the 3 counties to provide additional shelter resources. Currently, there are limited federal funds that are coming to this region, and we are part of a 26-county region in Oregon that goes from Astoria, Clatsop County, and then northeast to Lake or Malheur or whatever is in the far southeast, northwest to southeast. So it spans the entire state of Oregon. There's no particular exposure in terms of cost or staff time to the city of McMinnville. This is simply a resolution of support encouraging the Yamhill Board of Commissioners to take action in joining a regional continuum of care. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, any council discussion or question of Jeff? We've seen quite a bit on this, and okay. So I'll ask for a motion to approve resolution number 2019-34.
So moved.
And a second. It's been moved by Remy and seconded by Wendy. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, signify by saying nay. Resolution 2019-34 passes unanimously 6-0. That now takes us to an approval of our council agreement, our roles and responsibilities. And so, Jeff, I'll turn that over to you.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. The City Council for the State of McMinnville has variously worked on council group and working agreements and roles and responsibilities since 1991, off and on. During the course of your executive and council team building in January, the council discussed this group and working agreements and the roles and responsibilities. Felt like you needed a little bit more additional time to review and consider those issues. On April 17th, the council met in a work session that was facilitated by Eric Jensen of Jensen Strategies. The documents that are included in your packet tonight were the result of that work session, and should it meet the pleasure of the council, you may adopt these documents by motion.
Okay, so I'll ask for a motion to approve the City Council group agreement and roles and responsibilities of the mayor, council, and city manager.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved by Kelly and seconded by Zach. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, signify by saying nay. This council agreement and roles and responsibilities has passed unanimously by a vote of 6-0. That takes us to our executive session this evening, and so we come back. Maybe.
There will be no decisions being made tonight, and there's actually, I think, 2.
Yeah, there are 2. We have 2. So what I'm going to do then is close our regularly scheduled meeting this evening, and we'll move into executive session pursuant to ORS 192-660-2D to conduct deliberations with persons designed to carry out labor negotiations, and then also under ORS 192-660-2H to consult with counsel concerning the legal rights and duties of public bodies with regard to current litigation or litigation likely to be filed. Thank you, everyone, for your attendance this evening.